Welcome back. We're here with Representative Mike Carroll from the 118th Legislative District. And Mike, let's get into the meat of some of the issues that are going to be facing you in this next legislative session. And I am sure that one of them that's going to be high on the priority list is how to handle Marcellus Shale. And what is the legislature looking at?
Well, it's very high on the legislative priority list. Probably one of the 2 or 3 most significant policy discussions that we'll have in Harrisburg over the course of the next 6 to 8 months.
And it's actually going to kind of be a little bit of a conflict, isn't it? A little bit between the economic advantages of the Marcellus Shale development versus the environmental impact or the potential environmental impact of the Marcellus Shale development.
That's right. It's a real challenge for us because as much as we want to develop the resource and take advantage of what nature has provided, we want to do that in a very responsible way. And the primary concern is our water resource, to make sure that drinking water and streams and rivers aren't negatively impacted as a result of a very significant activity in a broad swath of Pennsylvania, especially in our north central Pennsylvania counties that are not very far from here, as you know.
Now, I know that we here in the Luzerne County, Monroe area have not had an opportunity to directly face it yet. I know there was one well that was attempted in Luzerne County, but I know that one of your colleagues has the main thrust, and that is the areas up around Dimmock and so forth. And are you working with him as to how best to both handle the pros and the cons of the Marcellus Shale development?
Absolutely. The fact is that there really are broad impacts with House and Senate members throughout the state. Susquehanna County is one example, but there are many other counties not far from here that have a significant impact with respect to activity related to drilling and the drilling itself. And the impacts go beyond just the drilling, which is significant by itself, but the infrastructure necessary to support the drilling activity and the extraction has real impacts on local governments, on county governments, and on the school districts in the counties that have the natural gas resource.
It's interesting you bring that up, and your two of your 3 committees really are affected by that. Number one, obviously the Energy Committee, and with regard to the development of the natural gas as well as the drilling itself, but also transportation with regard to the development of the highways and byways here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I know just the other day I was driving up Route 6 to our Towanda office and noticed just the tremendous amount of wear on Route 6 between Scranton and Towanda. So do you see that as being something also during the course of the next legislative session that's going to have to be looked upon?
Well, really, and that gets to the question of the severance tax or an extraction fee, whatever we're going to call this, and how you use those proceeds. Because the fact of the matter is that the severance of the gas has a significant impact on the infrastructure of the Commonwealth that all citizens rely on. And it is not fair, in my view, for the natural gas companies not to return some of that largesse to the local governments, to the county governments, and to the state government. Because the citizenry of the Commonwealth, a citizen of the city of Scranton, for example, expects to have an infrastructure system, including Route 6, that they can rely on. And the impact that the natural gas companies are having is having an effect. And without a very careful examination of how we distribute the resources that can be generated with a severance tax, we will not serve our citizenry well.
Let's try to educate our viewers a little bit. When we're talking about the severance tax issue, what is it that you're really talking about?
Well, a severance tax is a fee that would be paid by the gas companies consistent with a measurement of the volume of the gas taken from the ground. And that sort of a tax is very, very common. More than 40 states have a tax like that, including very common energy-producing states like Oklahoma and Texas and Alaska. So the type of tax is nothing new to other states throughout the nation. It's uniquely Pennsylvania that we don't have a severance tax. I think probably if you trace back the reasons, it goes back to the coal industry. But the severance tax is a tax that is paid essentially by the gas companies based on the volume of gas taken from the ground. And it would be a tax that the rate that I envision in Harrisburg would be consistent with the severance tax rates in other gas producing states like the ones I mentioned, so that we wouldn't have a tax rate that would be significantly higher. In fact, we'd have a tax rate that's consistent with other states.
And that tax would then be used to help the infrastructure here in the Commonwealth?
It would be used to help the infrastructure that is in the hands of local governments, in the hands of county governments, the local school districts, and the Commonwealth as well. And the challenge for us, if we were to proceed in the direction of a severance tax or a fee, is to distribute that largesse to the individual taxing bodies in a fair way.
Now, do you see that severance tax issue being something that's going to be hotly debated in the legislature during this particular session?
Well, it was for the last 2 years in Harrisburg, and I'm certain that that will continue. The difference is that considering the budget challenges that we face in Harrisburg, and also the budget challenges faced by local governments, the severance tax is an alternative that has to be examined so that we don't resort to other types of taxes that people have an aversion to, and especially the property tax or a sales tax or income tax. There is no appetite in Harrisburg to advance down any of those paths. And so it really leaves taxes like the severance tax as one that we should consider that would have a minimal effect on the average citizen in Pennsylvania.
Now, my understanding is that the Governor Corbett is not in favor of a severance tax, or at least that's what he campaigned upon.
The view on the severance tax seems to be modifying slightly, in my view. The administration seems to have taken a position that they're not eager to head in that direction, but they're willing to listen to arguments made by the General Assembly. And even my friends in the Republican Party seem to have modified their position a little bit as it's evolved. And so that I think they're willing to entertain the imposition of a very modest tax consistent with other states, provided those tax revenues are split equally and fairly among the entities that I mentioned.
We are now going to have to take our second break. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Representative Carroll about some other issues which may be of significance in this legislative session. When we return on You Be the Judge.